Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, guys, welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast. I'm joined by a special guest and a good friend of mine, and excited to talk some new styles of hunting that I'm going to be implementing, and I'm excited to talk with a man who does it and does it well. We have Mr. Zach Ferenbaugh from the Hunting Public. Zach, how are you, man?
All doing pretty well. A lot of stress before this turkey hunt that I'm going on. I'm headed to Montana right now, and just like, one of those classic situations where you're like, oh, it's going to be easy, and I'll just pack all my stuff. I'll get some work done and pack some stuff, and next thing you know, it's like an hour later than you wanted it to be, and you're trying to get everything done. But now that I'm on the road, I'm feeling a lot more content.
That's how it goes, man. Now you've been on a turkey slaying tour.
Yeah.
What all states have you killed in already this year?
Yes,
that's a good problem.
If
you have to start it with a that's a good problem.
Well, I guess I'll include the places that I filmed as well. I've been in South Florida, North Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and let's think, Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and then Oregon. That's 7 so far, and then I'm on my way to Montana, which will be 8, and then we'll be in Wyoming, and that'll be 9. And then Colorado, maybe a little Nebraska in there, so 10 or 11. So yeah,
that's
definitely
awesome.
definitely getting some ground covered, and there's really nothing else I'd rather do this time of year other than go turkey hunting. I mean, it's just turkey hunting has always been a huge passion of mine, and I mean, I love deer and turkey hunting, and now other types of hunting, big game hunting too. But turkey, I feel like, was kind of, for me personally, just the big hook where it was like, man, I'm completely addicted and obsessed with this.
Use the left 2 lanes to turn left onto Spear Boulevard.
Now, what's been your favorite state to turkey hunt in so far?
It's hard to pick a state. I like any of the mountainous stuff, I guess. I like Appalachia. That's probably my favorite area to hunt, and a lot of that, I think, just has to do with where I really got hooked on it. When I was in college, I lived in southern Ohio, and anywhere where there's a lot of hills down there, so anywhere where there's hills reminds me of that. And I just love those eastern hills, man. There's just something about them that's like home. That's my favorite. But then again, the coolest part about hunting turkeys is they take you anywhere. So you can hunt turkeys in every state except for Alaska. So
now I've only got one problem with turkey hunting, and that's within an hour and a half, I can be in hogs, and I can shoot as many hogs as I want with any method I want, night or day, thermals, dogs, bows, guns, tannerite, whatever you want to hunt hogs with, you can do it. So it's like, if I get free time, I'm like, man, one turkey, or do I want to go kill as many hogs as I can in a weekend, Yeah. That's the only problem I run into with turkey hunting. I'll go every once in a while if a buddy invites me or something, but usually if it's, I got time away, I usually find myself chasing hogs.
Yeah, I could see where the opportunity definitely is what gets you out there, and hogs definitely, I would say, have more opportunity. I think the big thing for me has become the traveling. So like, even if I'm going to a place where you can only shoot one, it's like, the cool part about turkeys is you can just jump a border of a state line, and you get by another tag and you're off. And for the most part, at least, there's some states that are a little bit more difficult, but
yeah. No, I will say that though. Before we get too far into this, I do have my buddy Aaron Zeesh on the phone with us as well. Hello.
How's it going?
We're gonna kind of pick your brain on hunting public ground and doing it from the ground, and we're excited to kind of implement some of those strategies this year. So I wanted him on. We're going to be traveling to some public ground and implementing some of those methods. But we went out to one of my properties this Saturday, and the southern border of that property is Oklahoma. So I see what you're saying. I can hunt Kansas and kill my bird, and then jump the border into Oklahoma.
Yep.
And not even change the area I'm hunting, just literally one road, and it's
Yeah.
just a little tractor path. It's not even a real road. So no, I see what you're saying there. Now, before we dive in, I do need to give a quick thank you to our friends over at Selway Archery. They make the absolute, hands down, best quivers for a recurve or longbow. And it's my understanding, Zach, that you are getting into a recurve. And so, man, you'll have to check out the Grayling quiver from Selway if you haven't already. It's branded with Bear Archery. It's the old school green looking, original looking hood that Fred Bear used to run. So it's just a really cool quiver made by Selway. So go check out Selway for all their quivers because they make some fantastic quivers. Now, let's dive in, man. What really made you get into this ground hunting and this aggressive style of whitetail hunting?
Turkeys. I like turkey hunting better for so long, and I was like, man, there's got to be more to deer hunting than just sitting in a tree stand, because hunting turkeys, I was getting way more joy out of it because I was moving around and I was using all different types of situations to move on turkeys and get closer and really push that really just push it to see how close I could get to them before I would start calling. And just felt like in a tree stand it was like I was just getting by. And then the climax of a deer hunt in a tree stand is obviously one coming down the trail and you get a good shot at it and you make the shot and the deer goes down. But that time of the thrill is so short in a tree stand, it seems like. Don't get me wrong, every situation's a little bit different, but I felt like being on the ground, I could just kind of get a little bit closer to that thrill of the turkey hunt that I had, and just constantly moving around, I feel like keeps me sharper. So I was just wanting to get more out of deer hunting, and it was just, I don't know, it really just, I hate to say that I was bored, because deer hunting was still one of my favorite things, but looking back on it now, I was bored.
Yeah. No, man,
Yeah,
I remember my first out western hunt, spot and stalk hunt, was a bear hunt. And I remember halfway through that hunt thinking, like, what I do isn't hunting.
Yeah, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. I mean, I don't mean to sound like like I don't want to put anything down. It's not hunting, at least in the way that I would describe hunting to somebody. It's just waiting. And I mean, it's setting up and waiting and hoping. And hunting, in my opinion, like the definition would be the pursuit of game, right? Like if you're hunting deer, it would be the pursuit of deer, where hunting out of a tree stand, there's really nothing about that that's a pursuit. It's just kind of getting out there and putting yourself in the middle of it. And not that there doesn't, I mean, I'm not trying to discredit somebody that sits in a tree stand by any means. Obviously, like, it's just one of those things, like, it's an effective strategy, but
Well, those who hunt out of a tree stand, which that's myself included right now, but that's all about scouting. It's not about hunting. It's about scouting.
But ground hunting is actually more about scouting. It's just a different type of and a different
Right.
timing of scouting, Yeah, yes, it's about scouting and then just picking a spot that you feel so confident that the deer are going to be there, that it's worth, putting a bunch of time into it. And there definitely is a lot of skill that goes into that. It definitely takes a different type of patience than somebody that ground hunts. And again, by all means, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not giving credit to people that are effective out of tree stands. It's just, I think my biggest thing is always just, if you're like me and you want something more out of deer hunting, don't be afraid to get out of that comfort zone and get on the ground and mix it up a little bit.
I totally understand what you're saying because, like, okay, so in 2018 in Nebraska, you did a spot and stalk on a deer. I'm pretty sure you said that was like your first spot and stalk on a buck, right?
Yeah, it was it wasn't like the first time I had ground hunted. I'd been doing it for a couple seasons at that point. But that was the first time that I actually got to stalk a bedded buck, was actually making
Right.
moves towards the deer. So yeah, that was the first, I guess, official stalk.
Yeah. I remember watching that episode over my lunch break and my mind was just blown because like I had gone from, in Kansas hunting over corn piles and really had gotten, like you had said, kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching that episode and just like seeing the excitement and like it felt like I was living the episode with you guys. And I just like ever since that day, and then you're following, spot and stocks that you start doing a lot more of, that was like game changer for me. I mean, that was pivotal. So, because I grew up doing pretty much just corn piles, feeders, salt blocks, and it got boring.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think that it's one of those things too. If it's so, my friend Keith said one time, think about how easy it would be to get out of it. And what he was referring to is like, if somebody that kind of got you into hunting or your peers around you are telling you this is the only way that you do it is to get in a tree stand and sit and, in
Yeah.
some situations over bait or, over a food plot or whatever it may be, you kind of get to where you're like, well, I guess this is the only thing I can do. And like,
Yep.
after a while, if you don't like it, well, then you just quit doing it. So it's like, you're taught that there's only one way to do things. And, there absolutely is not only one way to do things. And it doesn't matter what type of habitat or terrain you're in or what part of the country, you can be effective doing this. And the reason I know that is because I've either been there and tried it or, I know people that use the same tactics and style
Oh,
and are effective.
don't under pat yourself on the back because you're super successful at it.
I'll tell you where my frustration come in, and maybe it's the same for you. And again, it goes back to that first kind of out western spot and stalk hunt, and I came home just thinking like, well, hunting deer out of a tree stand all comes down to luck of the draw. I mean, I could do all the scouting in the world, find the best tree in the world, but if that deer doesn't walk by, it doesn't walk by.
Right.
And you hear guys and like, I don't have a good wind in the morning, so I can't go hunting. And I'm like, that's a sad way to have to hunt, And so I just got so like overwhelmed with tree stands are so, and saddles really help in that. I mean, if you're mobile with a saddle, that really helps. But tree stands are so limiting in, well, this is the wind I have to hunt that stand. If I don't have that wind, I can't go hunt. Or if I see that deer at 200 yards bed down, you see guys on TV and they're just sitting in their tree stand waiting for this buck to stand up, and it's at 200 yards, and I'm like, get down and go get it, like pull out there. I mean, I watched a hunt of Fred Eichler's, and Fred's a good friend of mine, and obviously I respect him immensely. But I watched a video of him, and he was sitting there, kind of in a makeshift ground blind behind some hay bales, and this giant mule deer beds down. And I think he ended up waiting like 2.5, 3 hours. And I'm like, man, just crawl up there a little bit, It's only like 60 yards. So you only got to crawl, 40 feet or 40 yards and get within range of that thing. But I mean, it still worked out for him. But still, I'm just like, man, it's so restricting when we limit ourselves to this is where I'm hunting and this is the wind I have to hunt with it. And the deer have to come down this path because I cut this shooting lane. It's just restricting.
Yeah, for sure. And like you had touched on, there's definitely ways to become less restricting hunting out of a tree, whether that be a really light mobile tree stand or a tree saddle. But just having that ability to move immediately is what I really like about the ground hunting. It just there's no like well, for example, I'll throw a situation out there. I think a lot of mobile tree hunters, they are in a situation where like a hot doe runs out at like 80 yards and she goes down a trail that's out of range, and one buck follows her, two buck follows her, and usually at buck number 3 down the trail you're like, I gotta get the heck over there. I think instead of having to pull all the stuff down or even just take the time to climb down, it's like as soon as that doe goes through there, I'm walking there right now. Like there's no time missed. I'm not there's not even me stepping down one step on a tree step, on a ladder. Like I'm already on my way, and I think to me that's just the most freeing part about it, and it is really just overall an extremely freeing way to hunt. You're not confined to anything. You can move and
So one thing I have to ask you about, Zach, is so on a lot of your episodes when you do these spot and stalks, like in Nebraska or the one in the Cottonwoods when you're up on the canyon, or looking down the canyon, when you watch the episode, it feels like it's a 30-minute deal, but in reality, you talk about it, it's hours.
Yeah.
And I find one thing that I'm horrible at that I watch you do so well is like you can go from running and goofing around to slowing down and barely moving.
Yeah.
So it's just it's really interesting to me how you can snap into it and just, be inching towards a buck when you were just, high-fiving and goofing around and running, and that's something
Oh yeah,
I've struggled with for sure. Last year was my first spot and stalk, and it was on a doe, and it was after, watching your videos actually, so it was fueled by that, but it was the first time I had actually successfully slowed down enough to not spook the animal. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Were you
Yeah,
always this good at it?
Oh, no, I definitely not. I do think though that I talk a lot about turkey hunting, and not everybody likes to hear it because not everybody likes turkey hunting, but like a lot of the things that I learned that I feel like have made me much more effective at bow hunting deer on the ground is just hunting turkeys, man. Like you just start to learn what you can get away with, and you just get so much repetition where like with a big buck, you don't stalk a big buck every day, but you can pretty much, be hunting turkeys and be around turkeys pretty much every time you go out. Not every time, but and that's obviously like we go down a rabbit hole of, getting around turkeys, but like if you're around turkeys, you just get a lot more repetition. And in general, turkey hunting, you just get reps. And I think that hunting turkeys for so many days of my life, starting in college, it's just like that's repetition that I think helped a lot more than a lot of people would give credit towards. I guess it's just you just learn what you can get away with and what you can't. And I think that's a big part of it. But the other thing, I guess, to touch on that you had mentioned is like that ability to run and be moving out and to slowing down in an instant. And I think a lot of it is, there's two parts of it. One part, in the basic sense, is just like why I can go so slow and be patient with it. I think the main reason is I'm just focused. Like it's the one time that I can be extremely focused. And a lot of times what's going through my head specifically is if I let up for 1 second, it's all over.
It's
And like
all over.
all season, all summer, all spring, all whatever is like building up to this one moment. And if I take 1 second off, then I'm gonna never forget it. I will never forget, and I will never let myself live with the fact that I just gave up is really what it is. Because like
Yeah.
if you're focused 100% on that task, like it there's obviously experience helps, and I do think like being in at least decent shape helps, to just be able to like get through it, because sometimes it is physically demanding. But like, if you don't take a second off, you basically don't take a play off, and you just, play to the clock, like you stay really focused. And to be honest, in tree stand hunting, I'm sitting there looking at my phone, I'm looking at some other animal, I'm like, I don't know, just dinking around with whatever, like looking at my bow, like drawing my bow, messing around too much. And I mean,
Yeah.
or talking to a buddy, honestly. That's what I do mostly, is just I'm sitting up there with somebody in a tree stand. It's just like I'm just talking the entire time. And, I've messed up some hunts because of that. And with when you get in the moment and you know that it's like, I guess, do or die with being quiet and making all the right moves, you just kind of got to fall into it and trust. Always trust it too. Like, trust that if you take your time, it's gonna be okay. I hear the classic tale all the time, and I've probably done this. I can't think of any like real great examples, but I'll use my dad as an example, kind of throw him under the bus. So he saw a buck bedded a couple seasons ago. We were hunting in Ohio, and he saw a buck just bedded, and not just bedded, but like so worn out because he was chasing does that his head was flat on the ground. And he's like, "You got to be kidding me! This is too good to be true." The deer was bedded in a spot where he felt like he could crawl up over the top of the ridge with just an off wind, and get a shot at this deer as he stood up inside of 40 yards. So he makes a loop around the deer, puts some terrain between him and the deer, moves fast, gets up to a point where he needs to start crawling, and he's crawling and he's looking and he's not seeing the deer where he thought he would. And crawling and he's crawling, and he said, finally, it just went on long enough that I started getting lazy, and I started thinking, well, he's not there. Well, he probably moved. Well, he probably got up and chased a doe. And he's just like basically convincing himself that it's not really worth it to keep doing this. And then he started getting lazy, and he eventually stood up. And when he stood up too much, the deer saw him and took off.
There he was. Man,
So
that's totally, you're just speaking my stories right there.
yeah,
Every one of them.
And the thing is like, I think that we get in our heads, like there's a couple things you get in your head. It's like, well, I'm wasting my time. Well, if you've committed to it, you're absolutely not wasting your time. The only thing that's going to make you waste your time is if you don't, basically if you take a play off, I guess. You're not committed.
Does the camera accountability help for you? Like the pressure of knowing that everyone's going to see this, and you can't
to be honest,
you can't speed up and ruin it at the very end.
Yeah, I think honestly, I don't even really. The camera isn't really even there to me. I don't know. Maybe you can tell by watching the videos, but I don't. I'm pretty much just myself out there having a good time, and then we make a video, and it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's just like, it's just me. It's just hunting with a partner. I think is the big thing. Is the way I view it, and it's not really about. It's not really about. No, I don't. I know I'm going to make mistakes, so I guess that's not really a part of it. It's mostly just, again, if I'm going to commit my time to it, I don't want to just start to give up on it, and because then that's what I'll really regret. And I think that we can all say that for those of us that have had failed ground hunts. It's when you really look back on mistakes that you kick yourself the most, it's when you just got lazy. And really, yeah, I mean, that could go for any hunt. I mean, that could go for a tree stand hunt just as well. You get lazy and you start to take a play off, and all of a sudden it starts to unfold in front of you, and you're not ready, and you mess it up, and then you kick yourself. But yeah, that's the biggest thing. And then the other thing that I was going to touch on real quick with the the cadence, I call it the cadence. You might be walking, like there's a lot of situations where I'll be like moving really, really fast, and then it's just like, it's like the brakes get pumped immediately for like 2 yards, and I peek over something, and it's like, a lot of that comes with experience of doing it, but also if you think about like every time you break into break over terrain or break through vegetation, it's almost like you enter this whole new uh, area that you can see, and same with the animals. And if you're thinking about always what can see me right now? What can hear me right now? And then where's the next place that a new animal or like you'd have to be in a different location to hear me or see me? Does that make sense? So an easy one is just a simple hill. So like if you're standing at the bottom of a hill, everything on that hillside at this point has probably, it's above you looking down. It's probably seen you or heard you. And that means you can go up the backside of, or that side of the hill fast, which would be the backside of the hill for the next, valley over. So you can move up really fast, but it's like you really pump the brakes right as you start to crest, because on the other side of that hill, nothing over there knows you're there. Does that make sense? And I think a lot of times that's again just experience and repetition of doing it, but like you start to get really confident to where you're not really even thinking about it. You just know that, okay, I can move fast right here because this has seen me. This is already blown. I got to get through it to get to the next thing. And that really, as you focus on that and you try to improve your efficiency in that, and just be honest with yourself. That's another big thing. Like if all of a sudden you just like crashed into this like new drainage and you just like, your gut's telling you probably spooked everything, like you probably did. It's like be honest, and like don't try to be like, well, maybe, like I don't know, just be critical of yourself as you're making moves, and I think that will help.
I think you said it. I think you said it best too. Going back to what you said about having a cameraman and you're just being you. And we've had Aaron on the show several times, and I've told him this as well. So many hunting shows are out there just to impress people. To get the biggest deer on the ground and get as much horn on the ground as they can, and you guys just have so much fun, and it's a joy to watch. It's not every other hunting show I watch, I fast forward to the kill shot and I'm like, cool, move on.
Right.
But you guys, with the whole entire process, it's just fun, man. And you guys do it, and you do it well. So I mean, keep it up.
Especially for guys
Appreciate
who
it.
don't have enough time to really hunt a lot, because then you really feel like you went on the trip with the hunting public group.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a really cool experience when you watch it.
Mhm.
Now, before we move on, you're leaving Denver right now. Some of my really good friends over at Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear in Denver, and Mr. Tom Klum over there with Solid Archery Mechanics is one of the top ranked recurve shooters, recurve coaches, I should say, in the world. And so as you dive into this recurve journey, Zach, I would encourage you to get a hold of Tom Klum and get over there and get some tips and tricks and pointers. My good friend Aaron Schneider, that's his coach, and he does it well. And Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear is just an awesome place. So, guys, go check out Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear. Go check out Tom Klum. Go check out Solid Archery Mechanics. And because I promise you, Tom will make you a better shot. He's made me and Aaron both a better shot just through a few text messages and phone calls and emails. So go check out Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear and Tom Klum and Dan Klum over there. So, speaking of recurves, what caused you to make the switch to a recurve? And you're in that process now. What caused you to make that switch?
Well, I haven't officially made the switch yet because I haven't gone hunting with it, but I'm practicing, and really my goal with it right now is just practice until I'm ready to hunt with it, and then when I'm ready to hunt with it, hopefully be able to commit to it fully. Like I don't want to just use it part of the time. I want to commit to doing it full time, but to do that, I'm going to have to get to where I'm confident enough in it, and I'm not there yet. Turkey season, the beginning of turkey season, we were in the right type of campsites where I was able to shoot pretty much every day, and I was definitely improving. But then, to be completely honest, an entire month has gone by and I haven't drawn the bow. So, I was on for about a month and then off for about a month, and I have the summer to really hopefully get serious about it. But even if I don't end up hunting with it this year, the goal is to again just continue to practice until I am confident enough with it, because it's just one of those things. I feel like well, I guess to answer your question about why I'm getting into it, I started ground hunting, at the compound, and at first it was like, man, I love the ability to shoot 35 yards and 40 yards, and I mean, potentially further in some situations. But the more I do it, the more it's just like the shots just keep getting closer and closer. And one of the issues that I have with a compound, especially when hunting off the ground, is the movement. You just when you got that break of the compound, it really just makes a big difference.
Dang.
Yeah, the thing is, it just looks like a piece of junk, and that's the funniest part.
Slow down, Speed Racer.
Yeah, right. But
So Zach, what's the longest shot you've taken in like the last 3 seasons of the hunting public?
oh man,
I mean, what,
probably,
15, 20 yards?
yeah, 25 probably would be the longest. But I mean, yeah, nothing crazy. I'm
An
trying to
average
think.
of 10 probably?
Yeah, I mean, like last season, I was in Pennsylvania. I shot a buck at 3 yards.
Yeah.
Straight up 3 yards on the ground.
Why didn't you just stab him with your arrow?
I wish the video on that one would have been a little bit better, but it was like last light.
Yeah, it was just it is too bad, but it was one of those
That was incredible.
situations where it's like, I mean, so close,
Oh, yeah.
and when that's happening, it's just the movement. If you, the more minimal the movement, the better. Deer. This is one other thing that I try to say this as much as possible. Like, we give deer too much credit for what they can see. They're not very good at actually seeing things, especially things that aren't skyline. Like, they're great at seeing things that are skyline. So they're great at seeing a guy sitting in a tree stand that's backlit by the sky, but they're not very good at seeing things that are on the ground. And like, it's pretty amazing what you can get away with as long as a deer isn't staring right at you and you're moving. If you're moving, it's pretty much going to be game over. But if you're not moving, it really takes a lot for them to see you, and it pretty much takes them smelling you to officially bust. And it seems like same thing kind of goes for tree stand hunting. The does are kind of more of a pain where if they see something they're unsure about, they'll keep coming back and checking it. But like a buck on the ground doesn't see very often, and if he does, he's usually going to give up on it pretty quick. So like, just being able to keep that movement to a minimum has been the biggest draw for the recurve. And I also mentioned this before we started recording. I like watching Whitetail Adrenaline, and Jared Scheffler uses longbow, and watching him do that, I can see, and I've talked with him a few times and done podcasts with him too about like why he does it, and just kind of I just feel like it's better suited for ground hunting, and I feel like in a lot of situations it can be actually beneficial to be using that. Just the ability to get shots off quicker, and the minimal movement is important to me. And I think when I'm really confident shooting it out to 20 yards, making that transition to using it full time. The other thing, dude, honestly, things just light. I hate carrying around a compound all day, like moving around all day. That It's weird how much a bow, and like not just all day, but all season. Like when you get in a tree stand, you hang your bow up on a tree limb, like you kind of forget that your bow weighs anything because it is relatively light. But when you're carrying around a compound all day, every day, especially elk hunting, it just, man, that really starts to wear on your arms, as silly as that sounds, because the bow's less than 5 pounds.
I think it'd be interesting to see how it changes your style of hunting with a recurve, just not being able to draw back and just hold it for long periods of time, though, as a deer is getting closer and closer.
Yep.
Yep. That's going to be interesting for sure.
I think it'll be interesting, but at the same time, man, it's like there's something about like knowing, like I guess let's put it this way: the more I've done it, the more I realize that like I guess we always realize this for the most part when a deer's looking at you and when it's not. And like those things, man, they will just straight up give up and they'll turn their head. And it's like, they turn their head, you don't really need to hold the bow back for a long time. That's the other thing. In all these deer that I've shot, it's not like I've been drawn for a super long time that I think that I'm like, well, I wouldn't have pulled that off with the recurve. There's really never been much of a situation of that. It's more just using the cover and getting your body into a position where you can draw the bow back. And what I do a lot with the compound is I just draw the bow pointing straight down or as low to the ground as I can, and then I bring it up. So like with the recurve, still making some sort of movement, but it just seems like a much more controlled movement versus when you're pulling over that hump of the compound, you just get a lot of extra movement in there.
What recurve did you go with?
Well, I've got a few options that I'm toying around with, but I've got the Grizzly, the Super Cody, or maybe it's a Super Grizzly. Man, I don't know. I'm terrible with gear. I get the Grizzly in it. Maybe it's a Super Grizzly stuff. 40. I was when I first started shooting it. I was like, man, this thing is not even that hard to pull back, but you shoot it, a handful of times, it starts to wear you out. So
that is one thing, man. You get tired a lot quicker shooting your recurve.
Oh yeah.
You can go out and shoot a compound, 100 arrows in an afternoon. Recurve, you shoot about 20 times, and you can feel it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm kind of looking forward to. I'm hoping on this western part of the turkey tour here, I can get back to shooting it a little bit more. It's one of those things. Throw the target out at camp, and you get the right campsite. And problem is, with some of the areas that we were hunting turkey, just there's too many people around. It just isn't really the best area to be shooting. But where we first started, like I said, for the first month of the turkey tour, I was shooting it every day. So get back into that.
Now run me through your compound setup.
My compound setup is, and this is all based off of ground hunting too. I try to shoot the shortest axle to axle bow that I can find, like pretty much period. I shot last 2 seasons the Bear Divergent. That's a 28 axle to axle. I'm shooting it at like whatever 70 pounds. I think for I basically shoot and draw around, draw the bow, shoot quite a bit, and I feel like I'm in really good shape for shooting a 70-pound bow. But the one advantage you would get dropping down is, like I mentioned, the ability to hold it. There's not a ton of situations, like I said, where I thought, man, that would make a game changer. But the one that it would be nice to have it a little bit lower, I think. So the other thing is it's not like I'm shooting, across the food plot at 60 yards. Like, I wouldn't be able to shoot that far necessarily anyway, but it's just one of those things. Like, most of the shots are pretty close. A 60-pound bow will do the trick. Shooting, lower poundage is probably the better option. Although I haven't done that yet, I know it would be beneficial. And then the other thing is just that short axle to axle. I think it's super important just because it allows you to get the bow in a lot of different places. And I like to still hunt just as much as I like to stalk something. And when you're still hunting, there's no real setup. It's just wherever you kind of end up as the action starts to play out. And you may move up and jump into like a little temporary setup, and all of a sudden a buck's coming in, and the more places you can get your bow in freely is ideal. So I think that's important. But if you're a guy sitting here and all of a sudden you're like, man, I got a 34-inch axle bow, like, don't worry about it. It's just be conscious of where your bow is in relation to everything else out there, because you never know when your arrow. I think one of the stories that I hear a lot is like, my arrow deflected off something that was right in front of my bow and I didn't see it, or it's the same thing in a tree stand too. Like my limbs hit a tree or a different tree limb or whatever it may be, and that throws the shot way off. Just being conscious of where your bow is and practice draw, man. Like, just draw that bow. I can't stress that enough. I say this to my buddies all the time. Like, I'll tell them when we're hunting, like, you're stressing me out because you're not drawing your bow. Like, you have to draw more. You have to know where that bow is, because as soon as you don't, and you draw and your limb hits something and it makes a little rustle or something, and it stops the deer short, and he starts looking, he may not get into your lane, whatever it may be. But just like always be conscious of where that bow is in relation to everything. And when in doubt, stay further away from stuff than closer to it. Like if you get front cover, you jam yourself right up into front cover, you're not going to be able to get that bow up freely. But if you hang back from that front cover a little bit, you're going to be able to get up, move the bow right to left, and kind of follow if you need to.
The Divergent is one of the finest bows I believe Bear's ever made.
Yeah, I love it.
Have you ever shot the Divergent EKO, its predecessor?
I actually am probably going to shoot that this year. As far as the compound goes, I have one that I'm going to set up. So looking forward to getting that set up this summer.
It's one of the best bows, man. I absolutely have fallen in love with the EKO cam, and the Divergent is like you said, it's such a small bow, and then you put that cam on there that just performs incredibly, and you've got yourself a stinking deadly package is what you've got. Now I'll say this too, I got my wife one of the little legits, and I've been blown away by the way that thing shoots. I'm like, man, I got a full package bow, and you can pick them up at Cabela's for $300, and that thing is a phenomenal shooting bow. That little Divergent, or that little the legit. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to ask the tough questions, and I'll leave the easy ones to Aaron. How much coffee do you consume in a day?
That was my question. He totally stole my question.
Dude, oh man, a lot. I always start.
All right, hold on. Here's how the question was supposed to go. How much coffee is the human body capable of taking?
Yeah, there you go.
Because you would know.
Well, earlier when you were talking about slowing down, or when Aaron was asking about slowing down, I'm like, I don't know how he ever slows down.
Yeah.
Because the dude's got caffeine rushing through his veins at any given time.
Well, every morning I have to have it. That's one thing. Like,
what, a
absolutely.
Gallon?
Not a gallon. I make a extremely strong. I have a jet boil, so like I put a ton in like my little French. I do like a little press. It's like a jet boil French press attachment. I make that puppy dark, and it is thick, and it is strong stuff. So I usually just start with one of those, and then throughout the day, just take it when I can get it, man. Like, it depends on the time of the year. I would say most of the time, though, throughout the season, I'm doing at least a couple of those a day. Now, where it gets really weird is when I'm driving. It's like, you start getting a little.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you start getting tired, and then you do a cup of, like a 24-ouncer black coffee, and I only like to drink it black. I'll occasionally buy like those like Starbucks like cans that are like double or triple shot even. Occasionally I get those, and those are a little bit sweeter, but I try not to drink those too much, just because they're like a ton of calories. But
it amazes me that you're able to stay super focused and be on a deer for hours on end when you have that much coffee. And we probably shouldn't go here on the podcast, but I think everyone's mind's going to the same place. I'd be every 20 minutes, I'd be taking a pause,
taking a whiz.
Oh yeah, oh dude, yeah, oh that though too. I mean, definitely, I have my fair share of bathroom breaks out there for sure, and I think the thing about it though, it actually keeps me pretty focused. I think I don't get too like
jittery.
I don't really get too jittery. I definitely get to where I'm like way more fired up, and I think that's the best way to put it. Like, I definitely will start talking more when I get more caffeine in me, but also.
So do you have it now?
I actually just drank a caffeine seltzer water, so
okay,
getting some in there. But I do think that it just like it gets me physically revved up too, and that's important. Like, I think if you feel tired and lethargic when you're out there, you're just not gonna like be aggressive enough, or you're not gonna like do what it takes. Like, it's generally like if we're talking stalking a buck or even just moving slow through the woods, it's a semi uncomfortable feeling, and I think that if you're feeling lethargic or slow or groggy, you're just gonna get lazier with it. And I think that honestly, caffeine. I mean, I think it helps. I I think getting like extremely, amped up and that's just the way I like to live my life when I'm, doing the things I like to do. Like when I like playing football, and when I played football, man, I got pretty amped up. So it's like kind of the same thing. It's if you can get just really ultra, like get all your energy and be ultra focused, that's ideal for being on the ground for sure.
All right, Zach, I got 2 questions for you. First question, at what point do you call it quits on a stalk? Like how many hours could you go before, you're going to back out and come back the next day? Assuming you've got daylight, it starts in the morning. Could you go all day?
It's like, oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
that's the first question.
I started, this is a game changer, and like, I highly recommend it to anybody. It's like, I have a water bladder that's 3 liters, and I like that thing's full. I can absolutely make it a whole day.
Incredible.
I think that's the number one thing, because even if you don't have food, you may get a little grumpy, but like, if you're willing to be, stay focused and, just the biggest thing I think that people don't realize, and just in general, I mean, you can say this about everyday life. If you're not drinking water, you don't feel good. And like sometimes we don't even realize that we're not. Like today, I did it today. All of a sudden, I'm like, man, I am feeling lethargic and kind of like just not at 100% because I'm not drinking enough water. And when I used to go hunting, I would get so drained, dehydrated, and like, it's like everything gets amplified. Like you're too hot, and it's just like unbearably hot. Like, everything's kind of sunny and dry, and it wears you out, and you feel tired. And if you're a little bit tired already, if you're dehydrated, you feel even more tired. And I think that, honestly, drinking water is the number one thing.
So you don't fill it with coffee then, you're saying? 3 liters of coffee.
No. The coffee in the morning, and then it just, and honestly, before I go out, the other thing I do is I drink like at least 1 liter of water every day. So then I have to be on my back too the whole rest of the day. So coffee, water, and then really being hydrated throughout the day. You'd be surprised at how, you stay, it's bearable, the hunger at least. And then you throw a couple granola bars or whatever, you do some like snacks throughout the day, you can easily make it a whole day. And to answer the question, like if I have confidence that the deer is either there, like I could see him, or I just trust that he's there, or whatever the situation, if I got confidence in it, like I'll absolutely wait all day and put an entire day into it. It's like, because part of the biggest problem with deer, unlike turkey a little bit, is like you leave a turkey and you don't spook him, like he's probably going to be in that general vicinity the following day. It'd be pretty easy to relocate him because he's gobbling. If a deer, you leave him, dang good chance he's not even going to be there the next day. So like, I don't like waiting around and like hoping that there's a good chance tomorrow. I mean, there's some situations again where maybe you can see a long way. Maybe you're in a western state where you can get up on a high point at a glassing knob and find the same deer day after day. But like, especially when you get in the hardwoods, man, it's like you don't know if he's going to be on this ridge or 3/4 of a mile to the north on a different ridge, and it's just difficult to give up on one when you know he's there. That's for sure.
You had that one hunt where you guys hiked in, what was it, 8 or 9 miles, and you didn't even know what the area looked like.
Yeah.
And you put a stock on a buck and shot it and had to pack it out. Where was that?
That was in Nebraska.
Nebraska. Yeah.
That's a hilarious one. Like
it was like light out when you guys were done, right?
No, it was
like 5 in the morning.
Yeah, honestly, it got dark. That was around. I want to say that was. Shoot, would that have been? Early December. So like, early December days are pretty short. So I think it was probably getting dark at 5 p.m. and it was about. I think it was about 11:30 or 11:45 when we got done, and that was rough. I mean, it was super fun, but like it was definitely physically demanding.
That would be a tough one to do without your buddies, for sure.
Oh yeah. It would have been a way different story, because you'd have had to go. You could do a whole deer by yourself packing it out like that, but like 7 miles is just a long way. Like that's
Well,
a
even
long way.
just the motivation to get back there just to check it out by
Right.
yourself in
Yeah.
December. Oh yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
So
I was curious to know too, when it comes to hunting deer from the ground, how much flack do you get? Like, how much pushback do you get from people saying like, well, if you were just in a tree stand, or why do you do it that way, or you're going to spook more deer that way, or I mean, how much kind of that pushback do you get?
I mean, the more I do it, the less I get, I feel like, or the less I pay attention to it. I mean, or maybe it stayed the same and I just, expect it these days. Um, it's one of those things, I guess, like people don't like something different a lot of times. Like, and that's, I don't know, just kind of lame if you ask me. Like, if anything's different, people always just want to be like super quick to judge it and put it down and never really give it a chance. Where I think that's just ultimately what it comes down to. It's like, man, give stuff a chance. Like, be willing to be open minded when it comes to new things, because I truly believe that it is more effective for the right type of person and the right maybe personality or type of patience. I think it's more effective than tree stand hunting. Like, I'm getting way more opportunities now than I ever was out of a tree stand, hands down. Like, way more. And older bucks. I just think that people that don't like it, I mean, it definitely exists, and I'm sure there's people that just straight up hate me, but like, whatever, man. Like, it's totally legal. There's nothing wrong with it, and not everybody has to do things exactly the same way. You could. It's the same thing with like elk hunters. There's elk hunters that the way I like to elk hunt is move and bugle, and try to get a bull bugling. Some guys like to sit on a water hole all afternoon. Like, I mean, you can pay me to sit on a water hole afternoon. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's just not my interest. So, to each their own, I guess. And there's always going to be haters out there, but it's just one of those things that I'm not. And the other thing is too, if I'm going into a place to hunt, I'm at all costs like avoiding everybody else. Like, I'm not just like running through people ever. If I know people are there, I just will go somewhere else. It's not worth it.
the hunting on the ground, it also really opens up a lot of opportunities for getting in some of these bedding areas where it's just grassy, willow trees, and the type of terrain where you can't put a stand, and if you put a ground blind, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that you're going right into the middle of a bedding area.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like it allows you to get into places that guys in tree stands like just absolutely can't get to because there's no tree to put a tree stand in.
How much time, Zach, do you think you spend scouting versus going in for a kill, when you spot a buck? Because, when we watch it on camera, a lot of times it kind of seems like we don't get to see the 4 or 5 days of film of you sitting on a hill.
Yeah, I guess a lot of times, like, it depends on the setting, that's the big thing. Out west, I guess it's like, you're more just trying to get to a position where you can see a lot. And by out west, I mean even as close as Iowa, and I was hunting there. Iowa or just anywhere where there's like broken country, broken habitat. But then it's a lot different when you're hunting solid hardwoods. Like, I hunted Ohio a lot last year, and that area is not open at all. Like, it's nothing but timber. So, there's not really as much of an opportunity there to get eyes on stuff and just like straight stalk something. But there's definitely opportunity to move around and find where the sign is fresh and just put yourself in an area where you're hopefully gonna see something. Or I think I guess let's just use the hardwood setting for example. In the hills, like, you're always trying. Well, actually, let me get before I get too ahead of myself. ideally you're always trying to get a visual on something that you're wanting to pursue, right? That obviously helps a ton. A lot of times in a hardwood setting, if you get yourself into a position where you feel confident that something may come through there within bow range, that's great, but you also try to stay in a position where you can make a move easily. So like a couple examples that I could use are like, on the top of a ridge, if something gets out of sight, you can always drop on the backside of the ridge and move towards it and then pop back up and just use terrain to get closer. Or if you're sitting down low in a creek bottom and all of a sudden you see a deer move across the creek bottom or parallel to the creek, and you're like, man, if I just move up 50 yards, I can get potentially in range. Well, if that's the case, you can just jump in that creek and be virtually silent making that move. You'll see us do stuff like that a lot, like jumping in a creek bottom to cover ground really fast, or just using the backside of a hill to cut a bunch of distance. So I guess how you get there, though, too, for like hunting, let's say we use the example of hardwoods. A lot of times what we're doing is just the classic, like you pick a spot on a map, you feel confident, looking for like diversity, looking for the type of terrain that you're expecting deer to spend their time in, and then move through that area in a way that is slow enough where you don't feel like you're going to spook deer, but also getting close enough to say, okay, they're coming in and out of this location. I'm going to start investing some more time in here. Sometimes it takes a handful of days. Sometimes you're right on your first guess, and sometimes it takes a little bit of like poking around to figure out exactly where you need to be as far as getting close enough to actually get a shot on something. A lot of times, I would say on average it's like day 6. I'd say day 6 is typically when the opportunity comes. So, I think of it like probably 3 days of hunting, finding the best area, 2 days of picking apart that best area, and then on day 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, you finally, put all the pieces of the puzzle together. That even kind of comes down with the Western stuff too, because in those situations you're looking at a spot, or you're going in class in multiple spots. You're just trying to find a buck that you want to chase, and it sometimes takes a handful of days before you actually find where the highest deer density is, and then finally starts to play out and you find one and get your chance to make a move.
Now, I got one question for you that I like to ask my guests, and I work with a company by the name of Rebel 6 Rubs. Head over to rebel6rubs.com. Use code BEAR101 to get 20% off. But I like to ask all of my guests, what's your favorite wild game to eat?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I eat so much of it that it's like, I don't want to make it sound like I don't like anything, but man, I shot a pronghorn this past year, and as far as like hoofed creatures, I would say that's like definitely a standout. Like surprisingly
I've heard
good.
that a lot.
I love whitetail. Whitetail's always great. I've always liked mule deer. I really like elk. I think with elk, my theory on elk and why everybody likes it so much is I feel like it just tastes a little bit more like what people are used to, and people are used to beef. So I think it tastes a little bit more like beef, not as much. It's not as much of a surprise. Like when you eat, if you give it like a non-hunter whitetail for the first time, they're like, "Whoa, this is different," and it kind of triggers this different. You get a different taste. So it triggers the like, "Oh, this is like has a gamey flavor," and it's not gamey. It's just deer. It's just like it's just not a cow. At least that's my opinion on it. And
No, you're right. My pet peeve is when people say, and I told this to Aaron the other day, is when people say it just tastes gamey. No, it just doesn't taste like beef or chicken or pork. It tastes like venison, or it tastes like antelope, or it tastes like elk. I'm glad you said elk, because Rebel 6, one of my favorite ones of their rubs is their elk rub. I put it on everything, and it's just delicious. So, no, I was just curious.
Well, I didn't finish though. My absolute favorite is Believe it or not, turkey. If I had to choose, man, if I could just eat endless supply of turkey, that'd be pretty sweet. Wild turkey, man, that's the real deal to me.
Yeah, we have wild turkey every year at family Thanksgiving, as well as pheasant and quail. And pheasant and quail are two of my absolute favorites. So, Fred Bear was big on his field notes. So I also like to ask all of my guests to share with me a field note you've learned over the years, just something I can take and put in my back pocket and make myself a better hunter. And in your case, a better ground hunter, something that'll make me a better sportsman. And, just share with me something that you've learned over the years.
I guess the biggest thing that I would say is like, I guess my biggest tip with hunting and ground hunting in general is like, don't get too, like, podcasts are great and watching videos are great. And like, watching, like, let's say you want to hunt off the ground, you want to watch other people do it, right? Don't get too caught up though in this is the way that it has to be, or that there's a specific formula. Like, I can't explain how much I just go out and like, there's no rules, man. Like, I literally am walking from the truck and like put the wind in my favor and I'm just going. And yeah, I have a couple pit stops in mind of specifics that I'm going to check out, but like no real like rhyme or reason a lot of times other than, hey, I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to go with my gut and I'm going to go get in there and just feel it out. I just think that, I guess I sometimes kind of crack up to myself listening to folks talk about like such incredibly fine details of like which exact spot the buck's gonna J hook into the scrape and how his body's oriented and this and that. I mean, I think that stuff's like, by all means, like if you're thinking of stuff at a deep level, like that's cool, but like don't get so caught up in the specifics that you get too caught up doing the same thing. And then I guess the other things are just as far as ground hunting goes, deer just trust it. They can't see as well as you think. I mean, they can smell you, but they just can't really see all that well. And yeah, man, just get out there and get after them and have a good time with it, because I think if you feel like you're not getting the most out of hunting or not as much out of it as you want, get out of your comfort zone and try something different. The opportunity's there. Just, don't be afraid of failure. If you're afraid of failure, you're never going to do anything different. And that may also just make you continue to fail.
So with ground hunting, Zach, is at this point, is your hair part of your ghillie suit?
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, you have to keep it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a game changer. I mean, you have no outline at this point.
Yeah, the biggest. I'm not like kidding at all. Like it totally is part of it. I mean, I had long hair before I started ground hunting, but now it's like it really does break you up. It breaks up the head and the shoulders, and I think that all game kind of hits a point where they see that head and shoulder, and that is like, that's a human outline, that's danger, right? And I think that anyway, you can break that up, even if you don't have long hair. Like if you set up, I don't think a ghillie suit, I think a ghillie suit is super helpful if you got a setup and you know where you're going, and you're setting up on the ground. I think it breaks you up incredibly well. But if you wanted something that's like a little bit more lightweight, you can honestly just get like a ghillie hat, that like, you could drape over your head and shoulders and just kind of break that outline up a little bit. So yeah, totally part of the. I don't even wear the ghillie suit anymore. It's just the hair, man.
Now, what's your arrow setup look like going into a recurve?
I don't have any real specifics right now. Right now, I'm just kind of shooting to get some repetition, but I will get something heavy, and I'll be shooting a single bevel broadhead, I'd say. It's just haven't really got too down to the nitty gritty yet, man. I do a lot of turkey hunting. I don't really have a lot of time for bow stuff right now.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Why shoot at targets when you can shoot at turkeys,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's one of those things that I'll get more serious about here in the next month or so once turkey season's over.
Well, Zach, man, I appreciate you coming on. I've personally become a big fan of the hunting public over the last few months, and excited to see what you guys can do this year.
Well, awesome. I appreciate it, and yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
And I'm going to send you a picture of my first spot and stalk on the ground whitetail, and give you all the thanks.
Yeah, that sounds sweet, man.
Guys, thanks for listening. You guys have a great week.